Hey, what's up, guys? It's Sports Blitz here, and we're back with another NFL record prediction. Before I get into it, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. Today we're going to be doing the Carolina Panthers record prediction. Now, I'm really excited for this one because, well, they got an upgrade at quarterback yesterday. Now, I know a lot of you probably aren't a huge fan of Baker Mayfield, but I strongly believe he's better than Sam Darnold. Okay? I do think he can play. I do think he can win you games. I think he is a very capable quarterback, and when he is healthy, he doesn't get the credit he deserves. And he gets hated on too much when he is injured. So, yeah, I do think it's a huge upgrade. Let's go ahead and dive on into it. So, again, with the quarterback position, I like Baker Mayfield. I think he's going to be, honestly, this entire season's starter. Unless by whatever chance he does really struggle and Matt Corral is looking good. I don't know. I don't really see a scenario where they would start Sam Darnold over Baker Mayfield. That's just my opinion. But I also wouldn't be super surprised if Matt Corral doesn't see the field in year one. So, we'll have to see. Running backs, I mean, as long as Christian McCaffrey is healthy, which it's a big if, okay? I'm going to do this prediction under the assumption he's healthy, so take that with a grain of salt. This is definitely a team that I could be wrong about because McCaffrey's almost never healthy. But I mean, you got Christian McCaffrey, Chuba Hubbard, and Dante Foreman, who I was a really big fan of from the Titans. He did really well in Derrick Henry's absence and proved himself to be a legit running back. So I'm excited about that running back room. Wide receivers, you got DJ Moore, who I still believe is one of the most underrated receivers in the league. I believe he's a top 10 receiver. Then you got Robbie Anderson. Robbie has talent and potential to be good. He struggled with a lot of drop issues last year. If he can fix that, I think he can have another good year like he did in 2020. But I don't know. I don't know that I can really, expect him to have a 1,000-yard season. But going to Terrace Marshall, I do expect a much bigger second year out of Terrace Marshall. I think Ben McAdoo will know how to utilize him a lot better than Joe Brady was. And I think he's going to have a much bigger second year. Then they've also got Rashard Higgins, who was one of Baker Mayfield's favorite targets in Cleveland, and they had good chemistry. I mean, really, I thought he was one of his best receivers while he was in Cleveland. So I think that's going to be another good connection this year. And then, I mean, they've also got Brandon Zilstra, who I think he's pretty underrated. I mean, he's good on special teams as well. But when he does see the field at receiver, he makes plays. So, good player. I do like their receivers, but there are some guys there that, need to prove themselves more. Going to tight ends. Now, on paper, the tight end room doesn't look that great. Okay, got Tommy Tremble and Ian Thomas, essentially. Again, on paper, it doesn't look that good. But this is another situation that I'm confident that Ben McAdoo will do well at calling plays to these guys' talents. I mean, I do think Tommy and Ian are both pretty solid blockers, but can also be pretty solid at receiving tight ends as well. I do expect to see a lot of, wing T looks. Have both of them on the field at the same time. So I'm curious to see how they use the tight ends, but yeah, from the sounds of it, it sounds like Ben McAdoo's expecting to use them quite a bit. Now, I'm excited about this offensive line. Ikem Ekwonu was my number one offensive lineman in the 2022 draft, and I think he's going to be a stud. I think Carolina made the absolute best move possible to get him right there. So I really like it. On the other side, they've got Taylor Moton, who has been really their only like consistent offensive lineman over the last few years. So really good tackle right there as well. Interior, they have Pat Elflein listed as the number one guard. I personally think it's going to end up being Brady Christensen. And then maybe Deontay Brown and Cade Mays can also kind of battle for that spot, but I would expect it to be Brady Christensen. At center, they've got Bradley Bozeman with Pat Elflein backing him up. I think that seems, realistic and legit. Then they've got Austin Corbett. I really like Austin Corbett. I watched a lot of his tape this year, actually, before the Panthers picked him up. And I remember a very specific play that he was like bullying Vita Vea. And especially being in the same division as him, that's a matchup I'm excited to see all year this year. So I think that was an awesome pickup. So the offensive line looks a lot better. It really does. Defensively, they've got a lot of playmakers, but they also have a couple holes. So starting on the D-line, Brian Burns, I expect Brian Burns to take that next step this year. He's had 9 sacks the last 2 years, and he said it best. He said it's frustrating as hell. It's pissing him off. And honestly, I expect him to jump up and have a 12-13 sack season this year. That's kind of my expectations for him. Derek Brown is another player that he's been really solid in the run game, but hasn't really come into himself yet as like a good pass rushing D tackle yet. Hasn't really met his full potential yet. I mean, this will be his 3rd year, so maybe he, finally reaches that potential. I mean, I think defensive tackles usually take a few years to really, really reach their potential. So I'm excited to see what he'll be. They also signed Matt Ioannidis in free agency. I think that was a really underrated signing as well. I can't remember if they got him for 1 or 2 years, but I thought he was really solid. Honestly, I think he could play D tackle or D end if they need him to. And really, especially with having some depth with Davion Nixon and Bravion Roy, I could see them using Matt Ioannidis at D end a little bit. But then on the other side, at the end, they've got Yetur Gross-Matos. He's also going into year 3. I think he can be good, but another guy that just definitely hasn't met his potential yet. He's made some good plays and has been solid in the run game. I think he's going to be a pretty solid run game D-end. But really, I don't expect more than like 6 or 7 sacks from him this year. I don't think he's ever really going to be that type of guy that puts up 13 sacks in a season, But then, I mean, behind them, they've got Marquise Haynes, who I think is going to get a lot more playing time this year and should have a solid year. They also drafted Amari Barno, who I was a big fan of. Basically like a great value Brian Burns, essentially. So I thought that was a pretty good pick. So they've got a little bit of depth. It's not the most outstanding pass rush yet, but it's solid. It's solid. I think it'll work. Linebackers, they've got Shaq Thompson, who still very underrated. He had an incredible 2021 season. I think he'll have another really good season this year. Then they've also got Damian Wilson at middle linebacker, who... So the linebacker situation is a little bit interesting, okay? This is a situation I'm not going to really go off of what ESPN's depth chart says. I think... So from what I've heard, at middle linebacker, they're going to have Damian Wilson out there for, like, expected run plays, because he's really good at stopping the run, but he's not very good in coverage. So, on, like, third and longs, it'll probably be Corey Littleton there. And then, I mean, really, I would bet they'd probably have Frankie Louvu at outside linebacker for those situations to rush the passer. They also drafted Brandon Smith. I think he's going to play mostly middle linebacker, and I think will get a little bit of playing time in year one, because they don't have a whole lot of depth. But I could also see him play a little bit of outside linebacker. I'm excited to see what Brandon Smith will end up being. But the secondary is what I really like here. So I've got Dante Jackson, who really, he gets a lot more hate than he deserves. He is a really solid corner, and really last year up until, his, I think it was Terry McLaurin matchup, late in the season. Up until then, he was playing really well. Then you got J.C. Horn, who was playing really well before his injury last year. I'm expecting a big year 2 out of him. C.J. Henderson is going into year 3, who, he should have a much better year as well. They've got Jeremy Chin. We all know who Chin is. He's a stud. And Xavier Woods, not necessarily like a huge name player, but is a pretty, like, safe, free safety. He's not going to be that safety that, like, wins you games because he has, a crazy game-winning interception, but he's not going to be a safety that loses you games either, okay? I think he's going to be a solid player. So I'm really excited about this roster. I think there's a lot of talent. So with all that said, let's go ahead and jump on into the record prediction. All right, so week 1 might be the most exciting game for the Panthers all season. Baker going up against his former team. I am so excited for this game. And guys, just so you know, I was kind of looking at Panthers tickets earlier this season, and I was considering going to the Browns game, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to go and watch Sam Darnold. And like, really, the tickets for this game, like, they had a low of like $60, and really most of the tickets were pretty cheap for the most part. Like, they were pretty affordable. Once the Baker Mayfield trade happened, the cheapest ticket was like $105, and the prices just skyrocketed. So this is going to be a big game. I think there's going to be a lot of fans at this game. I'm excited for it. But you know what? I think Baker is able to beat his former team that is probably going to be playing without Deshaun Watson. He's probably going to be suspended. I'm taking the Panthers right there. Week 2, I'm also going to go Panthers. I don't think the Giants are in a great spot yet. They had a pretty solid offseason. They did address the offensive line a little bit. They did get Evan Neal. I want to say they also got another guard in free agency. I forgot. It was the guard that used to play for the Colts. I forgot what his name was. But anyways, they got him. They got a little bit more pass rush in Kayvon Thibodeau. They had a pretty solid offseason, but they also lost James Bradbury, which I think is a really big loss. I think the Panthers are the better team right there. Week 3. Now, Alvin Kamara is probably going to be suspended for the first, it's expected 6 weeks. Um, after the appeal, um, there's potential for it to only be like 4 weeks. But either way, it doesn't sound like he's going to be playing for this game. And there's rumors that Michael Thomas, and keep in mind, I don't know for sure, but there's rumors that Michael Thomas still isn't like fully healthy after his injuries. So he might not be back up to 100% at this point either. But I think I'm going to go ahead and take the Panthers here. But later in the season when they play, I think I'm going to take the Saints. I feel like the Panthers and Saints are going to split with each other. Week 4. And guys, I promise I'm trying to be as unbiased as I can. But the Cardinals haven't beaten the Panthers since, it was either 2011 or 2013. I don't know. Either way, it's been like 10 years. So, yeah, I don't really see the Cardinals beating the Panthers. Even if the Cardinals do end up being the better team this year, it's kind of that big brother mentality that Cardinals just can't get over that hump to beat the Panthers. I mean, it was something that we even saw last year, you know? Panthers destroyed the Cardinals. Week 5, we have the 49ers at Panthers. This is a tough one, because I have no idea what Trey Lance is going to be. I have no idea what Trey Lance is going to be. But they'll have Nick Bosa, they'll have George Kittle. I'm expecting they'll still have Deebo Samuel. Elijah Mitchell and Trey Sermon. Brandon Ayuk, who finally had a, really good year last year. I think I'm going to go 49ers. That's a tough one. I could see that going either way. That's a really tough one to predict, especially where they're in Carolina. Whoever wins that game, I don't think it's going to be by much. But week 6, I think I can more confidently say that the Rams are going to win that one. Just being completely honest here. The Rams are a really good team, and I think they're still kind of the favorite in the NFC. Tampa Bay Bucks. I don't think they're as stacked as they were the last few years. I don't think they had as good of an off-season as, as the Panthers, or really as they had even had in the last few years. I know a lot of people are going to call me crazy for this, but I think the Panthers split with the Bucks. I think they win at their own fields. Now this something that I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Bucks do end up sweeping the Panthers. It's not going to be a big surprise to me, but I just have a sneaky feeling the Panthers can pull off one win against them this year. I do now think that the Panthers can sweep the Falcons. The Falcons are a bad team right now. Okay, I'm just being completely honest. The Falcons are a bad team. I wasn't a huge fan of the offseason they had, to be honest. I think the Panthers sweep them. But I think they lose to the Bengals. The Bengals are a really good team right now. I just don't really see them, losing to the Panthers. Week 11, same situation. I think the Ravens are going to beat the Panthers. I don't really see a scenario that the Panthers win. Maybe if they can control Lamar Jackson's, scrambling and running so much, but I don't know. It's going to be a tough one. Week 12 at home against the Broncos. That's a tough one, but I think they'll do pretty well at controlling Russell Wilson. And really, like, I don't think the Broncos are going to be quite as good as everybody expects this year. Okay, I mean, yeah, Russell Wilson is a huge, and I mean huge upgrade over Drew Lock. But, I mean, Jerry Jeudy hasn't really made much noise yet. Um, KJ Hamler hasn't made much noise. Cortland Sutton is a good receiver. And, I mean, Tim Patrick is pretty underrated as well. Okay, I'll give him that. But they no longer have Noah Fant. I think the Panthers will be able to slow down Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon enough. And I don't think this is going to be a blowout game, but I do think the Panthers can pull it off now. After their bye, they're traveling to Seattle to take on Drew Lock, and I think they win. I think this is one of my more confident games of the season. I think the Panthers win that one. Then I think they'll beat the Steelers, and this is one that really depends on, again, the health of Christian McCaffrey. If McCaffrey happens to be injured at this point, I could very well see the Steelers winning this one. There's a lot of these games that could go either way if McCaffrey's injured. I think they're going to beat the Lions as well. So, yeah. So, if the team is firing on all cylinders, no injuries, Christian McCaffrey is fully healthy, yes, I think they can go 11-6. But if we're doing a thing that, like, if Baker Mayfield isn't that great, if the offensive line isn't as good as I'm expecting, and McCaffrey's injured, then, I mean, really, I could see the Saints sweeping the Panthers. I could see even with them being healthy, I could see the Bucs sweeping the Panthers. In fact, I'm kind of tempted to actually reverse that. Yeah, I think I'm going to reverse that. I think I'm going to say the Bucs sweep the Panthers. I'm sorry. The Bucs still aren't as stacked as they used to be, but they're a good team. They're a good coach team, and they've got Tom Brady. It's hard to bet against him. I mean, maybe you could see the Broncos winning. And again, really depends on the Steelers right there. Like, if McCaffrey's injured, I think the Steelers win that. So, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be an interesting season. They've got a lot of, very winnable games. Like, I think they can get off to a hot start, with these first 4 games. Go 4-0 through these 4. And then, really, they just need to finish the season 6-7. I think this might lead them to a playoff run. I mean, I'm very confident in their ability to beat the Lions. Lions are an improving team, okay? I really love Dan Campbell. I like what he's doing with the team, but I don't think they're quite ready to compete. I think they're going to be like a 6, maybe 7 win team. I do think they can beat the Steelers. Very confident they can beat the Seahawks. Broncos, I previously had the Broncos winning that game, but with the Baker Mayfield trade, I think that is going to end up being just enough for the Panthers to pull off the win. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of very winnable games here. Like, I don't see them going up against many, like, mid-range teams, but they're going up against a lot of bad teams and a lot of really good teams. They have the Saints early on without Alvin Kamara. They have the Cardinals early on without DeAndre Hopkins, and that's kind of just a team that just the Cardinals haven't been able to beat the Panthers in a while. Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with 10-7. I know on paper the Panthers are probably more of like a 8 or 9 win team, but there's with the Baker Mayfield trade and this many winnable games, I think they pull off a 10-win game or 10-win season. But let me know your thoughts on this record prediction in the comment section below. Make sure to smash that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Later.